Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a match preview show. Villa's second leg against Brugge on Wednesday night. I've just knocked my phone as we started, so I was playing some weird cartoon video, which was good. So yeah, apologies for that. I'm your host Dan Bardell. As I say, Aston Villa against Brugge, second leg. Villa 3-1 up, going to Villa Park for the second leg, and I am joined by the Athletics' Jacob Tanswell, who has just returned from Unai Emery's press conference at Bodymore Heath. And Matty Cash was it as well?
It was, yeah. So Unai came in at half one, and Cash didn't come until half two. He had to wait around 45 minutes for the presence of Matty. He did apologise, which was fine. But yeah, Matty came in, Emery came in. Not much to really write about. That's why we've not wrote a piece on the Athletic. Wasn't very newsworthy, apart from obviously injury news, which we'll talk about. And with Cash is a great talker, and I think this is his third time he's been put up before a Champions League game, and in the other two games he's not played.
I was literally about to say that.
So hopefully that's not a warning or a foreboding situation for him. But yeah, he seems to do a lot of press conferences and media duties, a disproportionate amount. Exactly.
He's a likable guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
But to have done 3 Champions League press conferences more than anyone else, I think Tielemans has done a couple from memory, but yeah, he seems to get put up in front of the media quite a lot, Matty Cash. And whenever there's a game to be played or anything with like on the Premier League or other people's YouTubes, it always seems to be Matty Cash.
Yeah, he seems to be the one that says yes the most. The others, I think they have a bit more of a pushback. But there's that group that always are willing to. So McGinn, Cash, Leon Bailey, Watkins, Mings as well. Those guys, and Konsa as well. So those guys.
Right then, Unai in good spirits, Jay, around the second leg. It's quite an interesting scenario for Villa, isn't it? Being ahead, I've got to admit, I didn't expect that going into the second leg. It's quite an interest. Oh, Jacob's gone. Not great there. He's probably pressed the button. He's coming back though. I can see him, so don't worry, don't despair. Jacob is here. What happened there?
Nothing happened to me. It said you in. Was it me?
Oh, I don't. You disappeared. I stayed on the screen. I mean, let us know if you can see us both, because it wouldn't be great if you could only hear and see one of us. So let us know in the chat that you can that you can see us both. And Davey Lad 23 has just seen Matty Cash on the M42 on his way back from speaking to Jacob. So Matty Cash is everywhere at the moment.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. About Emery. Yeah, his press conference lasts about 15 minutes. Just talked about having experiences before in Champions League. Who could forget the PSG Barcelona of leading in a first leg and coming back to lose the game as well. So he's taken nothing for granted. He made the point about Celtic and how they were 2-0 up, and within 5 minutes Celtic had come back to level. So they'll take nothing for granted. They'll treat this game like a normal game in isolation in terms of wanting to go and win and not trying to protect a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, Gig Sharma's right here, isn't he? Really, the next goal in the tie is crucial. If Brugge go 1-0 up, it becomes a different kind of second leg. If Villa score the first goal, you're almost home and hosed. You would expect.
Yeah, exactly. And if Bruges do score that early goal, then there could be a bit of anxiety. And also, I know Matty Cash and Emery always says we want to win the game, but there is that point in the game where you feel, do we stick or twist? Do we keep committing players forward, or do we just protect a 3-2 lead in aggregate, for example? So it's going to be a game where I think obviously the first goal will be key, but at the same time, Villa have scored early in a lot of games at Villa Park, and they don't tend to go on and really shut out the other team. So I still think there'll be times where Villa will have to withstand some pressure, but I think at home, under the lights at Villa Park, and a great chance of getting into a quarter-final, I think they'll be too strong.
Yeah, and of course, Global Greg Evans on Monday called Villa to potentially win the Champions League, and then got called negative later on in the show, which was quite surprising. Because if you're calling Villa to win the Champions League, I think the last thing you are is negative.
Greg went for Villa to win the Champions League, even though they might play the Greg Evans derby in the next rounds.
Yeah, what he actually said was that he looked at Villa's lineup on Saturday against Brentford, and I kind of agree with where he was going with it, although I don't agree that Villa are going to win the Champions League. But he was saying that feels like a good lineup that could do something over a 2-legged tie. If they went away somewhere in the Champions League and played that team, played in the second half with Cash on the right hand side and Dizazi at right back. He said he just felt that team had the makeup of an Emery team in Europe, basically, and we know what Emery's like in 2-legged ties in Europe. So I understood what he was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think two-legged ties actually suit Villa, 'cause like you say, especially the second leg being at Villa Park. So, we saw last year in the Conference League when Villa played Ajax, for example, they could go and keep it quite tight. They could keep themselves in the game in that first leg, and then they can simply overpower and overrun teams in the second leg at Villa Park. So I can see what Greg's reasoning is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talking about Kamara to
Yeah.
start this one and come back in the team. He didn't start on Saturday, so you would expect he would come in and was being saved for this one. Be interested to see if he does start, Jacob. Who drops out? Is there a case for McGinn to move further forward? Is there finally a case for Yuri Tillemans to maybe sit the game out and have a little bit of a rest, as the only games he hasn't played are in the early rounds of the Carabao Cup this season?
Yeah, I think both of them scenarios could happen. I'd like to see Tillemans get a rest. I don't know whether it'll be better to allow him to have a rest in this game, but it does feel like sometimes he does look like he's running on empty. And I think the natural gait of him as well, he can look quite fatigued and leggy at some points. But I wouldn't mind again seeing him again a bit further forward. I think he sets a real good tempo. And what Emery said in his press conference, which may give a clue, is he pointed to Morgan Rogers and John McGinn and being the two players that are the most versatile. He said there's other players that he's trying to make more multifaceted, but those two are the guys that he always leans on to play different positions. So I would like to see McGinn maybe in the 10 role, maybe as a left 10, replacing Jacob Ramsey. And then you can play Kamara in there. And you just have a bit more protection. You also have a bit more energy in the press as well if McGinn's further forward as well. But saying that, if you want to take Tillemans out, then you can obviously play McGinn and Kamara next to each other. So he's got so many options. Only a couple of months ago we were thinking of Ian Matson playing right wing and just trying to find some emergency players to fill positions. But now it's an abundance of riches, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose on the resting front as well, if they haven't got a game for a few weeks, I don't think Tillemans will go away with Belgium. And as you think, to start one more game, Yuri, and then you will actually get yourself a little bit of a rest. How are you seeing the rest of the team? Obviously, Watkins is a lock up front. The fitness news from Bodymore Heath at the press conference was absolutely brilliant, because Villa now only have Barkley missing. Of course, Marlon and Garcia can't play this one due to being not in the Champions League squad. But we've got an abundance of options now, and picking the front players for this one, Emery's has got an embarrassment of riches, like you say.
He has, but also it depends on the configuration of the team. So you saw in the second half against Brentford, right? You saw Desassis is right back, third centre back with Matty Cash a bit further forward. You could play that if you want to put the handbrake on a little bit. But interestingly, in the first half against Club Brugge away from home, Villa were essentially a 4-2-4. They played four up front, real wide wingers. And you don't really see that with Emery team. You usually see two number 10s. The fact that, Rodgers and Watkins were these two false nines, and then you had Bailey and Rashford who tried to stretch him behind, was, for me, an example of Emery recognising that Club Brugge go man to man. They're very aggressive in pressing. They left Tyrone Mings as a spare player on the ball, and Emery fancied 4v4 in the back line and felt they could run beyond them. Obviously, that didn't materialise, but that gives you an idea of how Emery wants to beat this Club Brugge team that press man for man. So I think how Bruges play and the fact that they've got to come out and be a little bit more attacking as the game goes on could impact the team selection.
Will Mings manage three in a week?
You'd rather he didn't, right? But you want to see how.
I just like you playing, to be honest.
I know, but yeah, Powell. Is he ready to start a game? And if he is going to play a game, or do you feel like he needs an extra 2 weeks? But if he is going to play a game, then this type of game would be good, because, like I say, Bruges went man for man, but they kept a player at the back just to provide cover against the pace of Rashford and Bailey. So the spare player on the ball was Mings, and they let Mings have the ball because he's not obviously the most progressive with his passing. If you have Powell there in that position, they couldn't do that, could they? So maybe he plays, but obviously Mings is in great form. At the same time, like Cash, you've got to be very careful with these players playing 3 games in a week.
I do just wonder that I think 2 months without a game for Pau Torres, just to throw him in the Champions League second leg, I feel like that's a big ask. I think he probably needs the international break. I'm sure Villa will arrange some friendlies for the players that have just come back from injury, and I would think that would be the time, maybe after the international break, that we see Pau Torres. It's great to have him back amongst it and on the bench, of course, but I don't think you can just throw him in for a second leg Champions League game. That would be my feeling.
Yeah, I'd agree, but you've seen for how many years now under Emery, and how many examples where a player has been injured for a little while and they come back into a game. You saw Kamara when he had that.
Kamara's just a freak, though, isn't he? With that kind of thing,
he is. But at the same time, I don't think this game will probably suit Pal in terms of he will be able to play through the thirds. He's not going to be, tested as much going in behind. I don't think a lot of the play that Bruges have is that false nine coming to feet. So physically, mobility wise, it shouldn't be as difficult. And for centre backs as well, I know, see your injury, they're not it's not the most exhaustive part of the pitch. I think a midfield, I know Kamara's a freak, but if there's going to be any doubt, you probably say in midfield you'd rather take a precaution. I still think Mings will play, but I'm trying to maybe see if Pau can even get 60, 70 minutes in, or you shift to Sassy to centre back with Konsa in the back four.
I think if Pau was to play, I think that would mean Disasi at right back would be my thinking, and then that leads to Leon Bailey has to play on the right hand side, or Matty Cash, I suppose, could play there as well. My preference would be at home, even though we're leading, is to have a more attacking player in that position than Matty Cash. But will Rashford play again? Asensio, obviously, Asensio comes back into the fray. What's your thinking? What do you think Emery's thinking ahead of this one? I know you're not Unai Emery, you're not going to be able to predict what's going through his brain, but with your best kind of assumptions, what do you think will be the three behind Watkins?
I think it's difficult.
Rodgers
really
is obviously one.
Rodgers is a lock-in. I really don't know how they're going to play that right wing. If it's right wing, and then I say it'll be Bailey, Rodgers, and Asensio. I think those three would be nice. But at the same time, if you don't play Asensio, obviously just coming back from injury, then Ramsey will come in. I think Rashford's been good, but at the same time, he does shift the formation too much at the moment, and he's not offering us enough to compensate for that. So if he played, he'll be well high and wide on the left, and that would shift where Luca Dean plays, or the left back behind him, they'd invert. I can't see Rashford starting, but I might be wrong again. I just like to see I'd like to see 2 10s at least in the team.
Yeah, I mean, especially Rashford as well. I've liked him being injected off the bench at Villa Park. I kind of liked it with Asensio as well, but more so with Rashford, just to have that injection of pace down the left hand side. To me, he's had better games when he's been cut. I mean, he hasn't started many, so there's not a great sample size, but he's looked better coming on. But then the wage he's on, who he is, he's not obviously been bought to be a substitute.
Yeah, but he needs to justify his performances, right? And I know
he's done quite a lot with the time he has had.
I think he's been good, but for like you say, the salary he's on, the pedigree of the player, I know everyone's excited about him. But if Leon Bailey's putting Marcus Rashford's performances in, would everyone give as much credit to him? I don't think they would. I think he's been good, Rashford, but like I say, I don't think he's a lock-in starter where you've got to change the whole structure around him. For this game, you obviously need a bit of pace to test the back line. Maybe that's Leon Bailey, but then you also need players to link in the middle third, which Villa did well when those subs came on in the first leg. So you'd want those 10s, and I'd rather have a 10 that comes inside the pitch than a Rashford who will stay wide and not really get involved in the build-up.
Okay. Another interesting angle, and a few people have asked about it, and JMTD is the one who's answered it in the chat. Another yellow, and we'll miss Luca Dean, Disasi, Kamara and Rashford for the quarterfinal. Be inclined to rest Kamara and Luca Dean, use them if we need them. Bigger misses for the potential quarterfinal. That is an interesting angle ahead of the game, and I've got to admit, something I'd not really thought about.
Yeah, me neither. And you can certainly see Ian Maatsen starting, right? He starts games infrequently, admittedly, but he can start games. And like you say, if Rashford does play, you saw against Cardiff, and Emery always says that they practice things in games. So it's Cardiff that Rashford was one that stayed wide, and Ian Maatsen became this inverted left back who would often be in the left 10 position. So you can see those two working together.
Can do that very well.
He can do that. He played that in Chelsea in pre-season, not last year, but not this year, but the one previously under Pochettino, and he has done it at other clubs as well. So he can certainly do that.
Yeah, it's going to be really. I mean, to be honest, it's always quite interesting seeing the team selection at the moment because we have got an abundance of options. I think you don't often predict the team, right? I was 1 or 2 out for my Brentford team prediction. It's a difficult job to predict Emery's team now, whereas you kind of felt like last season. I don't know whether this is a good thing or not. Last season, you could kind of pretty much, if you guessed the 11, you'd probably get it right.
Yeah, or you could certainly guess 9 out of 11. Where now you don't know any, right? And it's probably becomes even tougher in the Premier League.
Rodgers and Tillemans, and Martinez tomorrow. I can pretty much be certain of Watkins. That's 4.
but you don't know how. You don't know. I could easily get half the team wrong because you don't know the type
Yeah.
of formation, don't know the type of build-up that they want to that Emery wants to play, and it's probably even tougher in the Premier League because you have Garcia, who is a more than viable option at right back, and maybe one day Donyell Marlin will start, get a few more minutes. But Cash was interesting today because he said this is the best squad that he's ever had or seen at Aston Villa. And I asked him about Disasi and Garcia, and he said, no disrespect to the other squads we've had, but in terms of strength and depth and how many players can do different things, we've got so many options. Rogers can play on the right, he can play left, he can make centre forward. And if he does play centre forward, then someone else comes into the number 10 role. So there's so many options and alternatives. It's quite remarkable.
I mean, I guess as two people who kind of for different reasons live and breathe Villa, if we can't predict a team, and I guess that's very difficult for the opposition to predict a team, which is a good thing heading into a second leg where you two up.
Yeah, not only can you not predict a team, but you can't predict how they're going to play. So I would have predicted that Villa would have gone 4-2-4 in that first leg and gone quite direct and put 4 across Bruges' back line. Same time, you go to Crystal Palace, you would have predicted they'd play a back three with high wing backs and naturally 4 backs either. So Villa can do different things. I know the structure always seems to be the same in terms of how Villa play and receiving the ball out from Martinez or the goalkeeper, but they've got so many different options of just subtly tweaking the system. And if you don't, if you can't predict that, then it will take a team or an opponent, a good 15-20 minutes to adjust in game, which is maybe why Villa have got off to some of these fast starts recently.
Yeah. How do you see the game going? I've tried to get you to predict a team, which isn't possible. Do you think what do you think Villa do? Do you think they try and kill the game early, or do you think it'll be a more tentative start? Do you think Brugge will come at Villa from what you saw in the first leg? What do you think?
I think Villa will blow them away early. I think they'll
think?
Yeah, I think Villa will make a big and fast start. I think Brugge will be keen not to get this tie too far away from them. So I actually think Villa will be the one on the front foot first. And if Brugge got some confidence going into the second half, if they're 1 or 2 down, then they'll gradually start opening up a little bit more. But I think initially they'll try and keep it tight because if Villa score another one, the game's dead. So I think Villa will try and make it dead early on, and Bruges will just try and settle into it.
I mean, I guess as well, another interesting thing is that time of recording tonight's Champions League Tuesday hasn't happened yet. Let's assume Villa go through. I'm not saying it's done deal by any stretch of the imagination, but let's just talk as if Villa were to go through. The game tonight is pretty critical as well, isn't it? Liverpool against PSG. I don't know whether you watched the first leg. I actually worked on the first leg for TalkSport, and I've got to admit, it's my favourite game of the season that I've watched live so far. I watch a lot of football, but I really enjoyed that game. I thought PSG were electric, and how they have not come away with anything from that game, I'll never know. But I don't think just because Liverpool have won, I think everyone just assumes they'll go back to Anfield and done deal, get a draw, go through, or win and go through. I still think with it being narrow, I think that's a really interesting game that Villa fans should watch tonight.
I hope so. And yeah, I watched the game and I was blown away by PSG. It's one of the best one of the best team performances I've seen for a good long while. I love, in football right now, I'm becoming a little bit bored at sometimes of watching games because I'm thinking, everyone's plays the same way and there's not much individualism. But then you look at PSG's front three, Barcola, Dembele, and the other guy I can't pronounce. Can you say it?
Kvaratskhelia?
That's him. And I just think they're wonderful 1v1s, off the cuff movements, and these are things that coaches want them to get into these positions, but they can't coach 1v1 ability. And those three have all got it. They've got pace, they've got power, they've got directness. I thought they were fantastic, and all they needed was that goal. They obviously had
wouldn't come, would it?
It would have come, and then Harvey Elliott pops up at the end. Fair play for Liverpool to sticking in there, but PSG are great, and if they can replicate that type of performance at Anfield, then you'd like to think that they will score at least one. And
we saw Southampton score at Anfield at the weekend.
All right, yeah.
Sorry, I said that with absolutely no. I completely forgot that you were a Southampton fan when I said that. It was not aimed at you at all.
Yeah, I think maybe Slamton have kind of put a wound into Liverpool that PSG can open up. Maybe, I don't know, but I think PSG are a really good team, and it'd be great for Villa to go to Paris, wouldn't it? In a quarter final. We've done Anfield a lot. I know beggars can't be choosers, but at the same time, it'd be really nice for Villa to go to Paris and have a quarter final there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just be happy to be in the hat. in all honesty. But that front three of PSG last week, the interchanges between them, they're just all swapping positions. Dembele reinvented as a number 9, but had license to drift pretty much wherever he wanted. Just attacked whichever defender he felt like at the time. Kvaratskhelia was absolutely sensational. Barcola was good as well, and then they'd bring on young talent like Doué into the fold as well. I'd love to see. We had the Bayern Munich tie at Villa Park, which was a premium Champions League tie. I would say. Obviously, if we play Liverpool, it's still a premium Champions League tie. But if you get through, you want to play a foreign team, don't you? You don't want two Premier League teams up against each other.
And also, supporters want a trip abroad. I did this piece after the first leg, and Liverpool's obviously a great club, a big club, but we go to those places in the Premier League. They want a broad trip. You make memories when you go on these trips abroad as well. I think, you want to go to Paris, but like you say, I was so impressed by PSG's athleticism, right? If you go 2 years ago, they had 3 strikers that didn't press or run until they got the ball, and now they're younger. They've regenerated, scored very well. They've recruited well, and they look a team that if Villa don't win the Champions League, you kind of maybe would want PSG to win it because of how well they play and how entertaining they are. So I think it would be a good game, and I'd love to see Villa's backline against PSG's front three.
Yeah, I said they've gone from Galactico to Galactino earlier on Twitter now, and
Nice.
they're much more likable for it, aren't they? They're quite a likable team with all the young talent that they had. I'm not saying they haven't spent money, because obviously they have, but it's I'm really looking forward to that game tonight, and of course following it up tomorrow night by going to Villa Park. Great question by Sadie Thrift, I think the name was. I completely lost it. It seems to have actually disappeared from my view. No, there it is. Who will be on the TIFO tomorrow? You can imagine us getting PSG if we did, and then Emery being on the TIFO. Villa Park against the old team, can you? But who will be? Do you think it could be anyone? Couldn't We've had the Villa villain, we've had Ozzy Osbourne.
Do you know? I don't know. Normally, I get a bit of a heads up, like a couple of days beforehand, but I don't know this time. No. Who would you want it to be? I don't know.
I'd like it to be Greg Evans and Villa to win the Champions League. Would be my preference on the team. If someone could Photoshop that for me, any good Photoshoppers watching, that would be absolutely brilliant. I'll post it on socials later. That'd be great. Greg on the TIFO. What about you?
Greg just playing golf. That'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? Just I don't know. Would you want some of the famous Villa celebrity fans?
Prince William.
Prince William, but then it's like a bit controversial to some people. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just keep it basic. You have the leaders. You have Emery. You have McGinn. You have Watkins.
Martinez.
Yeah, job done.
Yep. Yeah, there's a good shout from Julia Round. I don't think we've had this yet. Dennis Mortimer lifting. In the cup. That's a pretty good shout. We should have probably come up with that ourselves, Jacob.
Also, we had that stat. I heard it today, so apologies if I ripped it off. I can't remember who I got it from. Villa, if they win tomorrow, it'll be their 7th win in the Champions League, and they only won 6 when they won the European Cup.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's a new format, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, but it shows how well they've done so far in the opening Champions League campaign.
Yeah, that was great. That Martinez is actually back tomorrow as well. I haven't spoken to you about Olsen. I mean, I won't do it because we did it on the show yesterday with Greg. But good that Emmy's fit for this one. I think obviously, I think that probably does. Should we do a hot/freezing cold take, Jacob? Have you got one? I've got to admit, I don't really have one.
I really don't have one.
Poor from us both, really.
Do we have to do hot takes? Maybe because I don't know.
And you could do a score prediction, Jacob, if you prefer.
I think Villa will keep a clean sheet again. Is that a hot take?
That'll do. That's a hot. I mean, it's probably a freezing cold take, but it's a take, not nonetheless, Jacob. I'm going to go for thinking who hasn't scored in the Champions League yet. The player that hasn't scored. I mean, Asensio won't have scored in the Champions League yet. Rashford won't have scored.
Do you think Rashford finally scores? I say finally. He's not played that much, but do you think he scores? Yeah,
I'll go with that. That can be mine. I'll go with Rashford to score a Champions League goal for Villa. Obviously, Man U in the news this week with all the big Sir Jim Radcliffe interviews.
Yeah,
I'll go.
I'll
go with that.
I'm going 3-0 win. 6-1 on aggregate.
Don't know what they're sending you at the Athletic at the moment. You and Greg both gone up to absolutely loopy this week on the shows. Right then, let's go. Thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you for joining us straight back from Bodymore. Much appreciated. May need you to join me on Thursday as well for a show looking back on the game potentially if we can. But we'll let you know when a new show is coming. If you go to Villa Park, I will, of course, see you there tomorrow, and Jacob as well. Do look out for us both. We'll both love a chat, both love a wave. So, yeah, if you see either of us, do say hello. If you're watching via YouTube, thank you very much for watching live. If you've done that, and if you could subscribe with your post notifications on, and we can push those subscriber numbers up, that would be absolutely brilliant. If you could give the video a like as well and leave a comment, again, that would be much appreciated. Do go back and watch the pod with Greg as well that we did yesterday. There's plenty of relevance in watching that pod still. It's not really out of date. This is, of course, just a preview show. Go back and listen to what we said post Brentford. If you've taken in this pod via audio, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. And if you're listening via Apple Podcast, leave us a nice review with 5 stars, and leave us 5 stars on Spotify as well. That would be brilliant. Final piece of admin: there will be a Claret and Blue podcast out at some point near the end of the week, probably the weekend, because there's no game. What we did was yesterday we sat down, myself, Max Stokes, Dan Rollington and James Rushton, and we did a Villa draft. So trying to pick the best 11 we could from the Premier League era. It's actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It went down to the wire, and John Townley judged at the end whose team he thought was best. But yeah, I won't spoil anything, but that task is a lot harder. Obviously 44 players picked. It's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. So that'll be worth a watch at the weekend when it comes out. Jacob, of course, will be tuning in, even though he didn't listen to or watch the pod with me and Greg yesterday.
I've been on holiday. I've been on holiday.
Yes, I did forget you've been on holiday. How was that?
It was good. I trekked some Irish mountains and listened to Villa beat Brentford. So really enjoyed it. But I'm back now. Back until I missed the Preston game. But there's a reason for that. So stay tuned on The Athletic.
What a tease.
It's a really good piece. So something I've been wanting to do for 2 years. So we're doing it finally. Looking forward to it.
Okay, well, I'll find out what that is as soon as we come off live, and I won't let you know, obviously, because it's Jacob's news to share, but I'm interested by that. So yeah, let's go. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening, and we'll end with a big up the Villa.